Welcome to the second Beyond the Front Page show for tonight for the spring 2023 semester here at CU Community College. This is a show that's broadcast on Spectrum, Verizon, Fios, ARMA, the Auburn Regional Media Access, better known as ARMA, as well as the college's radio station, Win 89.1. I'm your host, Guy Cosentino. We are delighted to have in our studio the Executive Director of the E. John Gavras Center, Danielle Wright, and the agency's Community Liaison, Bob Padula, to talk about the center, and it celebrates 70 years this year in 2023. This is the third time we've tried to do this since November, and I'm delighted everybody's healthy and we're all here. But happy birthday!
Oh, thank you.
And that is so great. And I know we've done shows before, but I do want to do some basics about the Gavras Center because it's so important. So those who may not know, what is the Gavras Center?
Oh, geez, so many things. I think that's it, right? We always have a hard time getting our elevator speech down to
an elevator time frame. So,
yeah, because we do so many things.
So you provide a daycare.
We opened up daycare during COVID. We received a phone call from the county asking us 13 child care providers had shut down during COVID, asking us if we would open our doors for daycare for specifically all of the emergency personnel that, were out on the front lines fighting the fight, who needed childcare. So we opened our doors from 7 days a week, 12 hours a day to provide services for everybody that was on the front lines during COVID.
And are you still operating daycare?
We do not. We wrap our program. So historically, we always wrapped our program with childcare, like before and after school, if you will. So we would have a couple of hours in the morning and a couple of hours in the afternoon after our program.
So you run a school?
We do run a school. So we are the only 4410 provider of preschool services.
So 4410 sounds like two cool numbers, but what does that mean?
That is a lot, right? So we are licensed by the State Education Department to run preschool special ed services, regular ed preschool services from birth to age 5.
And then you also, and that is for children with and without disabilities?
That's correct.
Okay. You run the Imagination Library?
We do.
Which we'll talk about in a little bit. What is the Imagination Library?
So the Imagination Library is open to any child in Cayuga County from birth to age 5. And every month they get a book sent to their home.
Age appropriate
book sent to their home.
So if you signed up, if your child was born at Auburn Memorial Hospital, I know they have the forms up there.
Yes.
You would, by the time this process is done, you get 60 books.
Yes, that is correct.
If they start at birth.
And the only books that are duplicated is the very first book you receive and the very last book that you receive. Everybody gets the same book. So
I'm assuming it's still starting off with a little engine that could.
It is a little engine that
I have
could.
a couple of copies of that. So, and then you're also getting into housing as well.
We are. Yeah. We are soon to break ground on a housing project out in the village of Cayuga. On Wheat Street in the village of Cayuga. It was previously an elementary school. And we are going to have 47 apartments. Between apartments and townhomes, there'll be 47 units in total. Project's a little over $19 million right now.
So let's take these pieces by pieces. If you had to say in general, who do you serve? Besides everybody, who do you serve?
From birth all the way, currently at the Gavras Center, we serve from birth, and I believe our oldest participant is 89 years old.
And how large a staff do you have?
Right now, we have a staff of around 75, so we're down from pre-COVID. Some of that was by design. We did transition 3 of our 24/7 IRAs, where we had 12 adults.
An IRA is?
An individual. Sorry, Bob, I should let you get a word in edgewise here. An individual residence. So it's 4 individuals that lived in a house together, who primarily for our homes were individuals with autism.
So that may have started this conversation when you had done that reduction that you all were going to close. There was a rumor, and then you and I happened to be at the Chamber of Commerce dinner. You were emphatic, and that's when I think that was the first time we started talking about. We were talking about housing, yes. But then we got into this other thing about the rumor mill in Auburn, Imagine that.
Yes.
So what went on? What do you think it was all directly?
I think it was twofold. So we did transition those homes. So we had petitioned to transition those
That was
homes.
by design.
By design,
Right.
to a sister agency of ours. We were at the time in an umbrella of other like agencies. So we were going to transition them to that sister agency. So we'd started that process probably 2 years before the pandemic. And then, the state decided in the height of the pandemic, let's transition the houses. So I think that was part of it. All of the 34 staff transitioned to the other provider. So everybody stayed employed
So
during
no
that
staff
transition.
losses, but it
No,
did
I mean,
start-
staff lost it to the Gavras Center, but,
Right.
not
But nobody
overall.
lost their job.
Nobody
overall.
lost their job, no.
So in doing that, how do you combat? I know you're the public community face on so many different levels, but how do you combat something like that?
Well, it's difficult. It's again, Auburn, Rumor Mill, they're kind of synonymous.
I'm sure they are in every community, but we
do a
we
really
get-
good job at
we
it.
get a
So,
gold
yeah.
badge. For that.
Yeah. I think it's just important to get out as much in front of it as you can with the facts, because rumors are based on, hearsay and third
So let's
party.
make it emphatic right now. You are not closing.
We are not.
Okay.
We
In
are
fact,
not.
you're expanding.
In
some
fact,
way,
we're
right?
expanding.
Yes.
Yeah, that is correct.
So, is there a fee for service for all the programs? I know Imagination Library is separate, so we'll come back to that. But is there a fee for service for the services you provide
Yes.
to families?
To families, no.
Okay.
No. Unless they're coming to our preschool as a community preschool student, then they would owe money for that service. They private pay that service.
And was there state support? Not enough state support, but isn't there some state supports for some of that?
UPK 3PK is a service that we provide that's state supported through the
But the
school
state has not
districts.
kept up with those costs. Am I correct?
For the
on that?
tuition rates on the special ed preschool side, no, they haven't. In fact, there's been over 80 4410 providers in New York State that have closed in the last year. And I just heard that another one here locally in Onondaga County is set to close their doors in June.
So why is the state not kept rate? Do you have is there an explanation from the state? And I don't know if it's in this year's budget.
It's there is a push. There's some advocacy.
There's always a proposal to put it in the budget, but by the time the budget gets finalized,
So you may hear one way or the other
Yeah.
in 8 days.
Yeah,
if you're in there.
You're correct. Yeah.
Um,
It's not funded the same way as the school districts, even though we are under state
SED.
ed, just like the typical school districts are. It's not funded the same way. So the tuition methodology is always legally 2 years in arrears. So we're fighting that, and then we always fight when we don't get an increase. There's no COLA, no cost of living increase, yet our costs with minimum wage and with benefits and overhead, those aren't going
particularly
down.
during COVID when
Right.
we incurred more expenses,
Yeah.
during COVID.
and were you eligible for PPP money?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay,
Yep.
so that
Yep.
helped a little bit, but
Yep.
has it been harder to recruit staff?
See, and I think that's twofold to your other question about the rumors and how that all went. So it was kind of two things happening at once. Because the other thing that happened was, in order for us to run our school, we have to have New York State certified staff, right? So certified special education teachers, certified regular education teachers, and then we've got a pediatric RN on staff. We've got occupational therapists, physical therapists, speech therapists on staff, social workers on staff. So we've got a lot of certified staff that all have to be in place in order for us to be able to run a classroom. So we lost a special education teacher to the school district 2 days before school started and had to close down one of our classrooms.
And then you also ran into an inspection issue that has since been solved, correct?
Yep.
So
that
what was the inspection?
under-
And by the way, you should say, just a matter of disclosure, community college also ran into a problem.
Yes.
Roughly, I don't know if it was the same particular
It's
issue.
the same time frame.
Same
Yeah.
time frame.
Yeah.
So what was the issue for you?
We had a peanut allergy.
Okay.
So we had a child that had a snack that was made in a facility that contained, was a peanut
And so the
facility.
state comes in, and what do they do?
Yeah. So we had a series of retrainings. that we had to go through. All the staff went through some policy changes in the way that some of our policies were written.
And I think I read 2 months ago you're all through that, and you've moved on from that.
We have. There's some advocacy that's going on right now at the state level for 4410 providers to try to get state ed and the Department of Health to change some of the wording that they have in statute that would exempt 4410 providers from OCFS because we're
Office
school
of Children and Family Services.
Yes, sorry. Because we are schools, we're not daycare centers, but we have to now abide by the same rules as daycare centers.
But you're fully licensed, you've moved on and continue.
The issue between SED and OCFS is some of their policies contradict one another.
Yeah.
So if we follow one, we're not following the other and vice versa. So
classroom ratios is an example of that. You know, state ed comes in and says you can have this many kids in a class with these teachers in it. But OCFS says no. Daycare says you can only have this number in. So we're going to get cited by somebody in that instance.
So for your funding, a large chunk of your money comes from Albany.
Yes.
You get some foundation grants, correct on that?
Yeah.
Are you a United Way agency?
Yes.
And what do they fund for you?
They helped us fund the position that we have to have under OCFS with a child care director.
And so I do want to talk about my favorite program.
Yes, I
As
absolutely do.
you know, it's always the deal. You're coming on, we're going to talk about Imagination. So if for those who don't know, what is the Dolly Parton Imagination Library? Yes, it is that Dolly Parton.
Yes, it is that Dolly Parton, very much so. So it's very important to her, literacy. So she came up with this program that enables children from birth to age 5 to get a book in their home every single month.
So how much does it cost the agency to run this?
So it costs the agency about between $75,000 and $85,000 a year to administer. Depends on the number of books that we're sending out, right? So right now we're down. We typically send out about 2,200 books a month. But right now it's down around the 1,900.
Yeah. Any reason for the drop?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure if it was because people weren't getting out, during COVID to be able to.
You do have to fill out a form.
You'll have to be registered
for it. You do have to register for the program.
And we have registration forms at the hospital and typically all the pediatric offices.
And you can also go online, get the information.
Yeah.
Your office will send them if you go to the.
Yeah. But some of the events, during COVID didn't happen where we're,
recruitment
there.
events.
Awareness of the program was
done. So the books come. So we should say there's no charge to the family.
There is no charge.
And if they have 3 kids or 13 kids, I think in the last guest we had, they have 7 siblings. So spread over a time period. It's different books that go to age-appropriate books.
Yeah.
So
and they try not to duplicate in a family, that has other siblings in there. They try to send different books.
So other than Llama Llama Red Pajama, because I know that one, and I think this last one, I know this one as well.
That one is
Otis and the Kittens. Yeah. They have varied these year in and year out.
Yeah,
so
there's new books
coming online
always
all the
changing.
time.
They are specifically this year they have put out some books, a lot of in the guise of trauma and some of the trauma related activities. Mom and dad might not be together. I might be adopted. Some of those types that they've put a lot of those out in the last.
So where do you get your $75,000? Because this is an expensive program to run. There is no question about it.
Program to run. Gavras Center has been funding this solely on its own for several years. We do get some foundation help. The Emerson Foundation and the Allen Foundation have been very
Which
generous.
were original funders, part of the original team that brought this. Sally Wagner was on the original group, Meg O'Connell.
Yes.
And the United Way used to be.
The United Way does not fund this anymore?
Not anymore. It started with the United Way. It was a United Way initiative, and then we took over the administration of it.
And I know at one point there was a thought of trying to get the county to participate. So, I mean, you don't have to do this, I'll do this. So there's a benefit to this program, and it's not only about literacy for 0 to 5, but let's be honest, there are parents who could use the help with literacy as well, and there is a secondary benefit to adults who may not be for whatever reason, at those reading levels they need to be.
Correct.
Especially if they're reaching for cleaner or medicine under a sink,
Right. Yeah. Right.
which they should not be mixing.
Right.
Yeah.
That's separate. That being said, let's go to the county. So you've asked the county. They did not fund you in the budget back in December. What were you asking them for?
We are asking them for support in the program to see if we could get some of the families that are already receiving services. Was there a way to get that included? We know that Onondaga County funds theirs much under that same kind of a guise, so we were hoping that we would be successful in trying to make
Will
the
you be
pitch.
trying again this year?
Almost definitely. Yeah, we're not gonna.
And we should say that the Dolly Parton Imagination Library, we have one of the oldest ones in the state. We were before Onondaga County.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think we were the 8th in the state.
We're okay.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
just want to get that pitch out there. I think it's important. And if you give the United Way, you can always check the box and say the money. I know a family that does that.
Yep.
That this is an important program for our community, and it's beyond LVA, Literacy Volunteers of America.
And that's kind of the irony. Everybody thinks it's a wonderful idea, but nobody wants to fund it.
Right.
So
Books for kids. Imagine that.
Yeah.
So one of the other things, and I'm not going to stress this much more, or pitch it much more, but you are doing other things, and one of those things that you are doing is in the area of housing.
Yeah.
So let's talk about what you're doing in the village of Cayuga.
Yes. So 47 units between what they're going to put in the school, and then it's on 12 acres of land, so they are going to be able to put some townhomes out there as well.
And who will live in these houses?
So it's going to be open to anybody to live there. We will have 9 individuals with disabilities that are going to.
So this is an integrated.
Very
project.
integrated, yes, which is our model in everything that we do.
When do you hope to break ground on?
In May or June.
And how long will it take to build?
About a year and a half. Probably, I think they're guessing.
So you're hoping by the end of 24 you'll be up and running.
Yep.
Yes.
And I know you're on another housing board, a home site. You've been on there for a long time. So housing is just about you now. Is that? Will you do other housing projects after this?
We're hoping
We're looking to. Yes.
The next one that we have been investigating would be for families. We're looking to center it around
Seneca
families.
County, even out of the county. So yes.
And how much will this project cost in Cayuga?
Right now, it's just over 19.2, but of course, with inflation and interest rates, it's driving the cost up.
You don't know any bankers?
Yeah.
Yes, I know. For those of you who don't know, Mr.
Former
Padula was a banker. You're recovering?
Yes.
I do want to ask 2 other questions. We've got about 2 minutes left here. You do a number of fundraisers, but one that is coming up, I know, is your lake dance. Can you give me the who, what, where, and how of that?
Yep. So it's our 70th anniversary, and we typically ran an inclusion walk, an annual inclusion walk, or walk for autism awareness. But over the last several years, we've kind of come to the conclusion that they may have run its course. So we're going to try a lake dance this year.
So it's May 26th at Emerson Park.
Friday, May 26th, Emerson Park, 6 to 11.
Who can go?
Anybody can go.
How much does it cost to go?
$20 in advance, $25 at the door.
And what will you have a band playing?
Mere Mortals is
Mere Mortals.
the band playing.
Okay.
We're going to have food trucks up there.
I know you've listed at least 3 so far that'll be up there. And
Yep. Tanzi's Catering, Fat Cat Tacos, and Poppy's Ice Cream. Beer and Wine Cash Bar featuring product from Prison City Brewery. And tickets are on sale at the Gavras Center, Tinker's, Curly's, A.T. Wally's, and both Prison City Brewery locations.
do you have other events that you're doing to celebrate 70? Or is that the main focus?
We had a reception in February.
Okay. Well, that's what we were going to pitch when you guys were coming here in the fall.
Yes.
So,
Yes. So we received both the proclamation from the Assembly, New York State Assembly. Assemblyman John Lamondes presented that to us that evening, and Senator Rachel May presented a resolution from the New York State Senate. So we had a nice turnout for that. It was February 16th.
Mm-hmm.
So again, May 26th, you can buy tickets at the bars that you've mentioned, but you also can get them at the Gavras Center.
Gavras Center, yes.
And it's $20 beforehand, $25 at the door. It'll be a good time at Emerson Park.
Yes.
Because you never don't throw a good party, Mr. Padula. And
Thank you. I try.
You try. We'd love to have you come back in and talk about the housing once you've got it up and running, or even before that to talk about that. But 30 minutes does go very quickly. So our guests have been Danielle Wright, the Executive Director of the E. John Gavras Center, as well as Bob Padula, who is their Community Liaison. I want to thank them for rescheduling several times to come on. We'll be back in just a moment with Father Vasil Kopanik of St. Peter and John Ukrainian Church, as well as Ukrainians Olena Obrovna and Marina Svorin. I hope I have not butchered their names too badly. And to talk about the war that is now going into its second year in Ukraine and how they have come to Auburn, but just as importantly, how Auburn is aiding those in Ukraine. We'll return in 2.5 weeks after spring break with Q County District Attorney Brittany Antonacci, City Manager Jeff Dygert, as well as Auburn School Superintendent Jeff Perazzola and Lisa Green, their business manager, to talk about the budget that will go before voters in May. And then, of course, we'll have our May Auburn Large School District Forum on May 9th here in the studio. So please join us for those shows, but stick around for our show about Ukraine. You can send us your questions for future guests to cozguytho@aol.com. But I'm Guy Cosentino for Q Community College. We'll see you in just a moment.